AITA for leaving my dad's house. My name is Caleb, I'm 19, and my relationship with my dad has always been complicated, but I thought we understood each other. My parents split when I was 7. I lived with my mom full-time, but my dad, Martin, would pick me up on some weekends and we'd spend the day together. He wasn't the most talkative guy, but we had our little routines, going fishing, grabbing burgers from this small diner he liked, watching old action movies in his living room while my mom texted to ask when I'd be back. When I was younger, those moments meant a lot. They weren't flashy, but they were ours. He wasn't the type to pour out emotions or say, "I love you," all the time, but when I'd nod off in the passenger seat after a long day, I knew he cared because he'd drive slower so I could rest. When I was around 16, I started noticing changes. He began canceling our plans more often. Sometimes he said it was work. Sometimes it was things around the house. Then one summer, he introduced me to Lorraine. She was warm and friendly, with a big smile, and seemed genuinely interested in me. I figured she made him happy, so I tried to be polite and welcoming. A year later, they got married. That's when I met her kids, Owen, 13, and Emily, 11. They were polite but quiet around me, which was fine. I didn't expect us to click right away, but almost immediately, my dad started referring to them as our family in a way that made me feel like I'd been moved into the background. The first Christmas after they married, I noticed how different things felt. For years, I'd spend the day with Dad and open my gifts from him in the living room. That year, Lorraine's kids were there, and instead of a small pile of presents for me like usual, everything was split evenly among the three of us. That part was fine, but the personal touches, the little inside jokes, and the gifts were gone. Everything felt like it was meant to match. We all got similar sweaters. We all got similar mugs. It was like being part of a set, not like being his son. I didn't say anything at the time because I figured it was just the first year of blending families. But over time, I noticed that the moments I used to have with him, just us, were disappearing completely. If I called to see if he wanted to grab lunch, he'd say, "Lorraine and the kids will join us," like that was the default. If I asked if he could come to one of my baseball games, he'd bring them all, and afterwards all the conversation was about the kids and their activities. I felt like I had to fight for his attention in my own time with him. So when he suggested, a few weeks ago, that we finally spend a day together, just us, it felt like something was shifting back to how it used to be. We planned it 2 weeks in advance. I made sure I could take the day off work. He asked me to come to his place instead of meeting halfway, so I woke up early and drove nearly 4 hours. When I pulled into his driveway, he was already outside on the porch. I expected him to smile, maybe wave me inside. Instead, he stood with his arms crossed. There was no, "Hey, glad you made it." He didn't even ask about my drive. I walked up, and before I could say anything, he started talking. His voice was calm but heavy, like he'd been practicing what to say. "I've been thinking, and I'm not sure today's a good idea," he said. "It's hard for me to feel close to you when you don't embrace Lorraine and the kids the way I hoped you would. By not loving them like your own family, you're making it almost impossible for me to keep our connection strong." I just stared at him. The words didn't make sense. I hadn't been rude to them. I just kept a little distance. I was polite at gatherings. I asked how school was. I even went to Owen's school play once when Dad invited me. But I didn't pretend they were my siblings. I didn't force a closeness I didn't feel yet. Before I could even ask what he meant, he added, "I need to feel like we're one family. And if you can't, I don't know if I can keep trying." I felt this strange mix of shock and a kind of dull ache in my chest. My hands were shoved deep into my pockets. The air felt colder than it had a minute ago. I could hear leaves rustling in the trees behind the house. I wanted to say something, anything, but no words came. So I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I just nodded once, turned around, walked back to my car, and started the long drive home. I didn't slam the door. I didn't raise my voice. I just left. The drive felt longer than 4 hours. My mind kept looping through his words, over and over. "I don't know if I can keep trying." It was like he'd already made up his mind, like my place in his life depended on a performance I couldn't give. That night, I got a text from him. "Why did you leave like that?" I didn't answer. Then another, "We need to talk." Walking out wasn't the right way to handle things. Still, I said nothing. The next morning, Lorraine sent me a message. "I don't understand what happened yesterday. Can you tell me?" I told her exactly what he'd said. She read it, but didn't reply for a few minutes. Then she wrote, "That's not something I ever asked him to say to you." She said she'd talk to him and get his head on straight. Later that afternoon, she messaged again. She apologized, saying she never wanted to be a reason for tension between us and that she had no hard feelings toward me. She also said she was surprised he even said it, especially right before we were supposed to spend the day together. Since then, my dad has been texting that we need to clear the air, but every message also includes some reminder that walking out wasn't the right move. I told him I don't see the point in talking if he's already decided I'm not enough unless I love his new family, as if I'd grown up with them. Now I'm stuck wondering if I'm wrong for leaving, or if it's wrong for him to put a condition on loving me. Because right now, it doesn't feel like I'm his son. It feels like I'm a guest in someone else's home, waiting for an invitation to belong.
Update.
It's been over a month since that day on my dad's porch, and things have escalated in ways I could never have imagined. I thought giving everyone space would help. I thought my dad would have a chance to reflect on how harsh he was, and maybe we could rebuild our connection slowly. I was wrong. The silence didn't bring clarity. It brought tension, whispers, and a growing sense of isolation. The first sign of trouble came from Aunt Rachel. She's usually quiet, the family's neutral observer, but she called me unexpectedly one evening. At first, I thought it was just casual small talk, but within minutes, she had filled me in on a family gathering the night before. She explained that my cousin Mia had brought up my name repeatedly during the dinner, casting me as the villain. She said I was selfish and manipulative, that I was forcing my choices onto the family without considering how it would make everyone else feel. She didn't say these words to me directly, of course, but I could feel the weight of them crushing me anyway. Then came Lucas, my older brother. His text started off cautious, but it didn't take long before I could see he had chosen sides. "You need to think about how this looks," he wrote. "Family comes first." I reminded him that Mia herself had said she was okay, that she had no issue with my decisions, but he argued that people's true feelings always come out eventually, and I should have predicted the fallout. Every reply from him felt like a verdict being passed. Sleep became impossible. Every time my phone buzzed, I braced myself for another wave of guilt or judgment. My grandmother called multiple times, her voice shaking with disappointment. She told me I had broken the family apart and insisted I needed to apologize to everyone for my selfishness. She said, "Caleb, sometimes doing what you think is right isn't enough. Family matters more than personal feelings." I tried to explain, but she wouldn't hear it. To her, the damage was already done and no reasoning could undo it. The tension culminated at my cousin's engagement party. From the moment I walked in, I felt the shift in the room. Conversations stopped mid-sentence when I approached, whispers followed me, and eyes lingered a second too long. Mia didn't even greet me. She just looked at me with a cold expression that said more than words could, then turned to Lucas and whispered something. I overheard fragments. "She can't do whatever she wants. She's selfish. She doesn't care about us." My dad was there too, but he said nothing. He didn't pull me aside, didn't defend me, didn't try to calm anyone down. He just observed silently, and I could feel the disappointment radiating from him. Lorraine, sensing the tension, later called me privately. She said she had tried to mediate, had defended me, but Martin's anger had flared. He insisted I was intentionally creating conflict and that he could no longer pretend everything was okay. Lorraine said she told him that wasn't true, that I hadn't done anything wrong, but he didn't listen. He stormed off from the house that night and didn't return until the next morning. The next layer of drama came from my extended family. My uncle called me the following day, saying, "Caleb, you've put everyone in an impossible position. You need to make things right." When I tried to explain that I hadn't done anything malicious, he interrupted, saying, "Intentions don't matter when the family is upset. You should know that by now." Even my mother got involved, pleading with me to keep the peace for everyone's sake. I felt cornered from every side. There was no room for nuance or explanation. Meanwhile, Lucas continued to send messages that alternated between guilt-tripping and cold criticism. "Even if you didn't mean to hurt anyone," one text read, "you should have anticipated how your actions would affect the family. You should have chosen differently." Another said, "We need to talk, but I'm not sure if I can forgive your choices yet." Every message added another layer of tension, making me feel like I was walking on broken glass. At home, things weren't much better. My boyfriend has been supportive, but even he is growing frustrated with the constant barrage of calls, texts, and indirect attacks from my family. Every family event now feels like a trial, every interaction a test of my motives. I feel like I'm trapped, constantly under scrutiny, constantly judged, and unable to defend myself. Even minor things have become dramatic. A simple dinner at my mom's place turns into an interrogation. "Are you seeing him again? How often are you at Martin's house?" Every casual question feels like an accusation, a reminder that my actions are being monitored and interpreted as malicious. My phone lights up constantly with messages from relatives, each one layered with expectation, judgment, or guilt. And yet, the hardest part is my dad. Martin keeps sending messages that are both cold and loaded with expectation. "Even if you didn't intend to hurt anyone, you should have anticipated the consequences," one reads. "You should have thought of the family first." Another, "We need to talk, but I'm not sure if I can forgive your actions yet." The mix of disappointment, silent judgment, and occasional warmth is confusing and exhausting. I don't know how to navigate this anymore. I feel like I'm being punished for trying to be honest, for trying to live authentically, for not pretending to feel something I wasn't ready to feel. Every step I take seems to deepen the conflict. Every decision seems to make things worse. Even simple things like family gatherings are unbearable. I'm constantly aware of whispers behind my back, sideways glances, and subtle snubs. Every cousin, every aunt, every relative seems to have an opinion about my choices. I feel like I'm walking on a stage where everyone knows the lines except me. And through it all, my dad remains distant but expectant. He wants the connection we had back, but only if if I conform to his vision of family. If I don't, I'm selfish, careless, and somehow the source of all the family's tension. I feel like I'm trapped between loyalty to myself and the impossible expectations of everyone around me. I don't know how this ends. I don't know if it's possible to rebuild the connection without sacrificing my integrity. Right now, it feels like the more I try, the worse things get. I want to be part of the family. I want my dad to love me, but it feels like that love comes with a condition I can't meet. And that's the hardest part of all.
Update 2.
It's been another 3 weeks since the events I shared in Update 1, and things have escalated in ways I never thought possible. What started as tension has now turned into a full-blown family storm. Every day seems to bring a new layer of drama. It began with a group message from my extended family. At first, I didn't even realize I'd been added. Suddenly, there were 10 notifications at once. My grandmother, 2 aunts, my uncle, Lucas, and even some cousins I barely know. The message thread was heated. My grandmother started it off with a long paragraph accusing me of disrespecting family values and ignoring the bonds that hold us together. Within minutes, my aunts and cousins chimed in, each with their own complaints, assumptions, and judgment. Some were vague, like "you're being selfish," while others were direct. "You've made Mia uncomfortable and embarrassed everyone." Reading it made my stomach turn. I felt trapped in this digital web of accusation, with no way to defend myself without fueling the fire. Even my mom texted me privately in the group chat, pleading, "Please, just try to smooth things over for everyone's sake." I wanted to reply, but every word I typed felt like a potential spark for more drama. Then came my dad's contribution. He wrote a long message, trying to sound calm, but every line carried this heavy weight of judgment. He said, "I just want our family to feel united. I need you to understand that your choices have consequences. You can't expect everyone to overlook them." He ended with, "We need to talk, Caleb. It's time to face this." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every event, every interaction. I thought about my cousin Mia and how her whispers at the engagement party had followed me like a shadow. I thought about my grandmother, lecturing me on loyalty and responsibility. And I thought about my dad, the man I wanted to feel close to again, who seemed to love me only on terms I couldn't meet. The next day, my phone rang. It was Mia. She said she wanted to meet at a small cafe. I wasn't sure if I should go, but I also didn't want to ignore her. When I arrived, she didn't greet me warmly. Instead, she launched straight into her grievances. She told me she felt betrayed, that she had trusted me, and that my relationship with my boyfriend had made her feel like I didn't care about anyone else in the family. I tried to explain calmly, to tell her I never intended to hurt her or anyone else. I reminded her that she herself had said she was over her ex and that I wasn't trying to intrude into her life, but she wouldn't hear it. Every time I spoke, she countered with what everyone thought. My aunts, Lucas, my grandmother. She said, "You can justify it all you want, but the truth is, you've caused chaos." By the time I left the cafe, I was emotionally drained. I felt like I had been walking through a storm of judgment with no shelter, no ally, and no clear path forward. That evening, my dad called. I picked up, unsure if I wanted to hear his voice. He started cautiously, asking how the meeting with Mia went. I told him honestly. It was tense, exhausting, and left me feeling isolated. For the first time, I heard hesitation in his voice. He admitted he hadn't realized just how much pressure I was under, and that maybe he had expected too much. But the next words cut deeper than any accusation. He said, "I'm trying to understand, Caleb, but I can't. It's hard to feel close to you when it seems like you don't respect the family. You say you care, but your actions tell a different story." I tried to explain again, gently, clearly, that my care for the family was real, but that I couldn't fake emotions or force closeness. I told him I wanted our relationship back, but I needed space to be myself while navigating these family tensions. He didn't respond for a long moment. When he finally spoke, it was quiet, almost weary. "We'll see," he said. "We'll see if this can work." Since that call, every family interaction has felt like walking a tightrope. Messages still come almost daily, subtle digs, complaints, assumptions, and criticisms. Even my younger cousins have started whispering when I'm around. Family dinners, once comfortable, now feel like performances where I have to carefully measure every word, every expression, every reaction. The tension has begun spilling over into other parts of my life, too. I'm constantly anxious, checking my phone, anticipating the next message or call. Even small moments, a joke, a casual comment, are now loaded with the fear that someone will misinterpret them and escalate the drama further. Through it all, my boyfriend has been my only anchor. He's patient, supportive, and tries to help me see the bigger picture, but even he admits it's exhausting. Every time I think we can have a peaceful day, a new message or call from my dad, Mia, or someone else drags us back into the conflict. I'm left wondering if any of this will ever end. Can a family survive when so many voices are filled with judgment and expectation? Can I ever feel close to my dad again without having to compromise who I am? And if I try to defend myself, will that only make things worse? Right now, I feel like I'm caught in a storm with no way out. The storm isn't violent. It's quieter, subtler, but just as destructive. It chips away at my confidence, my my patience, and my hope for a connection that feels unconditional. I don't know what the next step is. I don't know if the family will ever see me as anything other than the source of chaos. And most of all, I don't know if my dad and I will ever find our way back to the relationship I've been longing for since that day on the porch.
Not Alita, your father imposed conditional affection, prioritizing conformity over authenticity. Walking away preserved self-respect and avoided feeding a conversation preloaded with blame. His disappointment reflects his unmet expectations, not your moral failing. Before we jump into the next story, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let us know your favorite part in the comments.
Story 2.
AITA for asking my cousin and son to leave. When my cousin Erin lost her apartment unexpectedly, she called me in tears. Her voice was shaky, and I could hear the panic in her words. She said she didn't want to tell her parents, that she just needed somewhere to land for a little while. I didn't hesitate. I told her she and her 6-year-old son, Leo, could stay with me. My place isn't big, just a small 2-bedroom apartment that I share with my partner, Jamie. We had worked hard to make it a cozy space, with bright walls, small personal touches, and a sense of calm after long work days. I thought, it's family. We can make it work. For the first few days, things were manageable. Erin left early for work most mornings, and Leo went to school. We all adjusted our routines to accommodate each other. I reminded myself that temporary chaos was part of helping family in need. But then came her first day off. I had run errands that morning, stopping at the grocery store and the hardware shop. When I returned home that Thursday afternoon, I walked into a scene that made my heart sink. The living room looked like a storm had hit. Snack wrappers littered the coffee table. Leo had pulled every cushion off the couch and built a fort that sprawled across the room. Even my cat's water bowl had been knocked over, soaking the rug beneath it. I froze for a moment, stunned, as the weight of it all pressed down on me. Then my eyes caught the far wall, the one I had just repainted last month. Bright streaks of green and blue painted across the smooth surface. It took a moment to register that Leo had gotten into my fabric paints from my sewing supplies and drawn all over the wall. Erin was in the kitchen, phone in hand, scrolling, completely unaware of the chaos surrounding her. My chest tightened. I felt anger rise, but I forced myself to take a deep breath. Leo, I said, keeping my voice calm, please put the paints down and start cleaning up the mess. He frowned, crossed his arms, and flatly said, no. I tried again, gently, and then firmer. He threw himself on the floor, screaming, stomping his feet, and knocking over the cushions he had stacked into a fort. Erin finally looked up, annoyance written all over her face. What's going on? She asked, as if she were the one being inconvenienced. I explained what had happened, expecting at least a small apology. Instead, she shrugged and said, he's just being creative. You're making a big deal out of nothing. I reminded her, as calmly as I could, that I had asked her to keep Leo out of my craft room. She waved her hand dismissively. You're too uptight about this stuff, she said, walking back to the kitchen. By the time Jamie got home, my patience was gone. He walked in, surveyed the room, and calmly told Erin, you need to respect our space. This isn't just a playroom. This is our home. Erin lost it. She started shouting, saying he had no right to speak to her that way and that we were making her feel unwelcome. Jamie remained calm, but I could feel my chest tighten, my stomach knotting. I went to the bedroom, grabbed her bags, and started packing them. She followed me, shouting, accusing me of kicking her out when she had nowhere else to go, calling me cruel, heartless, and selfish. I told her firmly that I had been patient, that her child had destroyed property, and that repeated warnings had been ignored. I explained that while I wanted to help, my boundaries and the safety of my home had to be respected. Erin called her parents. Within an hour, they arrived to take her and Leo away. She left without saying goodbye, leaving me standing in the hallway, holding her bags, drained and hollow. The next morning, my phone started buzzing. Relatives had heard about what happened. Some texts were supportive. You did what you had to do. Your home, your rules. Others were judgmental. A little mess isn't worth cutting family ties. She's your cousin. You should have been more patient. Even my mother called. Her voice was tinged with worry and disappointment. She asked if I had really handled the situation correctly, saying, I know you were upset, but family is important. You can't always react in anger. I spent the next several days replaying everything in my mind, every detail, every conversation. I thought about the chaos in my apartment that Thursday, the bright streaks of paint on the wall, the overturned cushions, and the mess Leo had made. I thought about Erin's words, the way she waved off my requests, requests, and the way she turned everything back on me. I thought about Jamie, who had stayed calm, who had tried to mediate without escalating the conflict, and I felt both gratitude and frustration. As quiet settled back over my apartment, I realized how exhausted I was from more than just the mess. The tension from the confrontation, the emotional drain of defending my boundaries, and the guilt placed on me by family members had left me hollow. Even though my home was quiet again, it didn't feel completely safe. I knew that helping families sometimes meant sacrifice, but I hadn't anticipated that helping would leave me feeling violated in my own space. I started making small changes around the apartment, securing my craft supplies and rearranging things to prevent future disasters. I kept in mind the lessons from this experience, the importance of boundaries, the necessity of clear communication, and the limits of generosity. I still love my cousin and her son, but I know now that kindness without limits can sometimes come at a cost. Even now, my phone occasionally buzzes with messages from relatives, some supportive, some judgmental. I'm left reflecting on how quickly small conflicts can escalate in families, how easily lines can blur between help and enabling, and how vital it is to protect your own space, even when it feels uncomfortable to say no. For now, my home is mine again, but the memory of that chaotic Thursday lingers. It reminds me of the delicate balance between family loyalty and self-respect, and how sometimes, even when you do your best, the aftermath is messy, complicated, and far-reaching.
Update.
2 days after Erin left, my phone rang. It was my aunt, her mother. At first, her voice was calm, almost soothing. "I know Erin can be a handful," she said softly, and I felt a small surge of relief. Maybe someone in the family understood. Maybe she would hear my side of the story. But then she said something that made my stomach drop. "She's telling everyone you humiliated her in front of Leo and made him cry for no reason," she said. I froze. For a moment, I couldn't speak. My mind replayed the Thursday afternoon over and over. The mess in my living room, the overturned cushions, Leo screaming on the floor, Erin scrolling on her phone, completely oblivious to what was happening. I could see the bright green and blue streaks on my freshly painted wall again in my mind. I took a deep breath and explained carefully, step by step, exactly what had happened, how Leo had gotten into my paints, how I had asked him repeatedly to clean up, how he had refused and thrown a tantrum, how Erin had ignored all my instructions, and how Jamie had tried to calmly mediate. I told her that I had only acted to protect my home and maintain some order in my small apartment. There was silence on the other end for a moment. Then my aunt sighed. "Well, you could have let it slide," she said. "You didn't have to pack her bags. She's been through a lot. Maybe this wasn't the right time to make her feel bad." I felt my chest tighten. The subtle accusation stung. I had acted reasonably. I had tried to be patient. I had tried to maintain a sense of calm. But her words made it sound as if I were cruel, selfish, or worse, intentionally hurtful. By the weekend, it became painfully clear that Erin had been talking to other relatives. My phone kept buzzing with messages, some from cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. One text read, "Kicking Erin out into the street? I can't believe you. You're lucky her parents could even take her in." Another said, "You're making this bigger than it needs to be. She's your family. Apologize. It'll smooth things over." Even distant relatives were getting involved. Some asked innocent questions like, "Is everything okay between you and Erin?" But I could hear the judgment in their words. I felt like my family was turning against me, slowly, piece by piece. Even Jamie, sitting beside me, felt the weight of it. He put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Don't respond yet. Let's think this through. They don't know the full story." The real shock came the next morning. I scrolled through Facebook and saw that my uncle, Erin's father, had posted a vague status. "Some people only care about their own comfort. It's sad when family can't support each other." It had dozens of likes and comments from family members, including some I barely knew. Even my cousins who lived far away chimed in, adding cryptic remarks about selfishness and turning away those in need. I knew immediately it was about me. I felt a mix of disbelief and hurt. My own family, the people I had grown up trusting, were now questioning my intentions. It was as if the moment I set a boundary, I had broken some invisible law of loyalty. Jamie suggested we block everyone for a while, to let the situation cool down. I agreed, though it felt strange to isolate myself from people I had always considered my support system. I spent the next few hours pacing the apartment, feeling the tension knotting in my chest. Every message I imagined receiving felt like a jab, but it wasn't over. That evening, my grandmother called. She's the glue that holds our family together, the one who mediates arguments, the one who reminds everyone to be kind. Hearing the disappointment in her voice cut deeper than I expected, she said, "I don't understand why you would turn away someone in need. I'm praying you find forgiveness in your heart." I tried to explain again, slowly, and as gently as I could, that Erin had ignored repeated requests, that that Leo had destroyed my home, and that my space was not just temporary, it was my home, my sanctuary. I wanted her to understand that boundaries didn't equal cruelty, but I could tell she was struggling to reconcile what I had done with her idea of family loyalty. The next few days were tense. Relatives continued sending messages, some subtly critical, some overtly accusatory. One cousin sent a long message detailing every time they felt I had turned my back on family, listing other minor incidents over the years as proof that I was selfish. I felt my chest tighten every time I read them. I tried to respond politely, but the words felt hollow. Every response seemed to escalate things further. I attempted to reach out to Erin, not to apologize, but to explain my side calmly. She ignored me. Later, I found out she had been telling family members that I had kicked her out without warning and treated Leo unfairly. Even though I knew I had acted reasonably, the narrative in the family was shifting against me. By the end of the week, I realized that my relationship with half my family was strained, possibly permanently. I kept thinking about that chaotic Thursday, the mess, Leo screaming, Erin refusing to respect boundaries, and how quickly things had spiraled. Even with Jamie supporting me, I could not escape the weight of disapproval from the people I had grown up trusting. I spent hours reflecting on the situation. I realized that helping family sometimes comes at a cost, that even reasonable actions can be misunderstood, misrepresented, and judged harshly. I reminded myself that kindness has limits, and that boundaries exist to protect not just myself, but everyone in a shared space. Even now, my phone occasionally buzzes with a new message, a question, or a subtle critique. I still believe I was right to stand my ground, but I also understand why some people see it differently. For now, I am left with a quiet home, a bruised sense of trust in some family members, and the lingering question of whether family loyalty always demands personal sacrifice, or if sometimes standing up for yourself is the only choice that preserves sanity, safety, and self-respect. And every time I think about that Thursday, I feel a small pang of sadness. Not for the mess, not even for the argument, but for the way a single moment of standing up for myself became a long ripple of misunderstanding, judgment, and fractured family bonds. I am left wondering how long it will take before my relatives understand what really happened, and if they ever will.
You're not the AITA. You opened your home in a genuine act of care, accepting disruption as part of compassion. But Erin's disregard for your requests and her indifference to Leo's destructive behavior crossed a line. From inconvenience to disrespect. Creativity is wonderful when it doesn't involve permanent damage to someone else's space. And boundaries aren't a sign of cruelty. They're the foundation of healthy relationships. While the fallout from relatives is frustrating, fueled more by loyalty politics and incomplete information than by your actions. Helping family doesn't mean surrendering your peace, privacy, or property. And you set limits only after patience and diplomacy failed. In the end, you protected your home without malice, which is both reasonable and necessary. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Got a story to share? Drop it in the comments and let us know which one was your favorite. If you enjoyed this video, you'll definitely want to check out TAA for changing my own name. Click here to watch it now.